Hi, boys and girls. It's Miss Goodfriend here with your social studies lesson for this week. Okay, and what we're going to be covering is a continuation from what Miss Gazikis did with you last week, and we're going to continue to talk about ancient Greece. Okay, so I know you read that book last week with Miss Gazikis. You learned a lot about how ancient Greece was back in the day. Okay, and we're going to kind of review everything that you looked at last week and maybe add a little bit more information. So, some physical characteristics of Greece is on the continent of Europe. Okay, it's bordered by the Mediterranean Sea. It is a peninsula. I want you to think, what's a peninsula? If you said it is surrounded by water on three sides, you are correct. Okay. It is hilly and mountainous, and it is limited in rich soil. Okay, so over here we see that this, okay, is the peninsula. Some Greek islands are over here. Okay, lots of water. Okay. It's very hilly and mountainous. So there are some human and natural resources, and we talked about those in the beginning of the year, right? Human resources are people that do something for us, and natural resources are resources that come from nature. So there are a few cause and effects that happened. Okay? So because Greece is a peninsula in the Mediterranean, okay, the ancient Greeks had to figure out how to make that work for them. So what human resource could they come up with because of that natural resource, that there was a peninsula, a lot of Mediterranean Sea. Okay? So what they did was that they were shipbuilders and fishermen. Okay? So over here are some of those ships that they built. They kind of used it to their advantage and were able to make it work for them and make ships and become fishermen because there was so much water. Another thing is that there's mountainous land and rocky soil. So if you look over here, look at all that hillside. That's a lot of rocky soil, a lot of mountains. Okay? So what they did to make that work was they built farms into those hillsides so that the people could be farmers also. So they were shipbuilders, they were fishermen, and now they were farmers. They were able to use this land to their advantage and become farmers. And then the last thing is that they couldn't plant many types of plants. That soil being all rocky is not good for plants. It doesn't grow very well in that. So what they did was they used the pottery that came from that soil, that rocky soil. They were able to use that rocky soil to create pottery, and they were able to trade with other countries to get food that they were not able to plant on their own. Okay. So over here, you can see all those different trade routes that they were able to use to their advantage because they had pottery to trade. They were able to get some food and other things from other countries to be able to survive. Okay, again, you can see that they were able to use those ships that they also created to be able to sail around the Mediterranean and be able to trade with other countries. Okay. There are a bunch of contributions that we talked about in class that came from ancient Greece that we still use today. So there are some architectural contributions. Those are the columns, the Parthenon. Okay, some arts contributions are sculptures and pottery. Government, we got direct democracy from them. And then sports, we got Olympics and the marathon. So we're going to look a little bit deeper into some of these contributions that we got from ancient Greece that we still use today. So the first one we're going to look at are those columns. So columns were a big part of Greek architecture, big part. They are tall cylinder-shaped pillars used to support roofs. And if you remember in math, we talked about columns and rows. So those columns went up and down. They're tall cylinder-shaped pillars that were able to hold up roofs. So with the land being so rocky, like we just talked about, the ancient Greeks were able to cut the rocks into blocks and make columns. So again, even though that soil wasn't so good for plants and other things to grow in, all that rocky soil let these ancient Greeks be able to make blocks and columns, which really helped with the architecture. And they are found in many ancient ruins, so stuff that's left from back in the day. So if you see right here, all of these are different columns. This is a column, this is a column. You can see that it's holding up this roof above it. Without these columns, that roof would just, boom, collapse. So the Parthenon used columns. A very famous building, one of the most famous buildings on Earth. It was built more than 2,400 years ago as a temple to honor Athena, the goddess of wisdom. It sits on a high, flat-topped hill in Athens, which is a city in Greece, capital actually. And over the centuries, it was used as a treasury, a place to hold money, a church, a mosque. So it was built originally to honor Athena, but over centuries, it has been used for many different things. One thing that it was used for in the 1600s was an ammunition dump. Ammunition goes into like guns and stuff like that. And it was hit by enemy fire. So we were attacked and it hit the ammunition dump, which the Parthenon was being used for. And unfortunately, that explosion left the building in ruin. So I don't know if you remember in class, but we looked at what it looks like now, and it doesn't look so pretty now. And that's because it was hit and basically blew up, exploded, and it left the building in ruins. So it kind of, was destroyed a little bit, still very famous, still very much a tourist attraction. If you were to ever go to Greece, you could go see the Parthenon, but it's definitely not what it was when it was originally built. So as you can see, the Parthenon also uses those columns, okay, to hold it up. Columns are still used today in many, many buildings around America, around the world. And some of the most famous buildings that are in Virginia or close to Virginia, okay, are the White House in Washington, D.C., the Governor's Mansion in Richmond, Virginia, and the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C. So right up here, my face is covering it a little bit, is the White House. Okay, here's the Governor's Mansion. I'm sure you guys have been hearing a lot about the governor recently. That's where he lives right now. And then there's the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C. All of them have these columns holding them up. Okay, so still very much used today in many places around the world. The next contribution we got from the ancient Greeks are sculptures. So they were made to honor citizens, mythic heroes, Greek gods. They were, ancient Greeks buildings were often decorated with the beautiful sculpture. So you could go into these buildings and there would be sculptures all over the place that they were decorated with. Okay? And then these are some examples of these beautiful sculptures that were built to honor these people. So if you have a sculpture, man, you must be very important. And you might have gone to museums before, seen some of these sculptures in the different museums. The next thing is pottery. So the ancient Greeks loved to tell stories. So tell stories verbally. They also like to create myths, which are stories of gods and humans to teach life lessons. So I know we talked about theme in reading, right? So life lessons are what the theme is about, right? Sometimes you learn something from a book. A lot of ancient Greeks created these myths to be able to teach a life lesson. They were able to use these stories as inspiration, and artists decorated clay pottery and bowls using those stories. They were also, of course, used to store oil and food. But Greek pottery was used to tell stories. And I know in class we had that ancient Greek urn project that we did that you had to tell me the contributions that you found most important. Okay? But pottery is not just used to tell what's important. You can tell any kind of story using pottery. And that's exactly what the ancient Greeks did. And so here are some examples of ancient Greek pottery and different stories that were being told on these different types of pottery. So the next thing is called direct democracy. Big, big word, okay? Again, it's a type of government. So it's a government in which people vote to make their own rules, okay? Power to the people. It was all about the people. The people voted to make their own rules. It wasn't like how some countries have kings and queens who make the decision for the entire population. The people had the power to vote to make these decisions. Okay? So it's the birthplace of democracy. So a few times a month, all the interested men who owned property in Athens gathered at a place near the Acropolis, the high hill on which the Parthenon sat, to discuss ways to make Greece a better place. They then voted yes or no with a show of hands as to which ideas would become laws. Direct democracy in action. So these men who own property would gather, vote on the issues. Okay. Our rules, our laws. The Greek democracy was not perfect. So I read, you were probably like, wait, only men who own property were able to gather and make these rules? Yeah, so that was the issue. Only men could vote. Men born outside of Greece, women and slaves could not vote. But there was an additional problem, and that was space. Can you imagine how difficult it would be for everyone who can vote in America today to get together every few weeks in one place to make new laws? That would be absolutely bananas. So democracy was born in ancient Greece. Okay, direct democracy kind of changed over time to what we use today, which we'll get back to when we talk about ancient Rome. But imagine it would be direct democracy is what you guys have in class, basically. You vote for what you want to do. So maybe your teacher asks you what you want to do for Friday Fun. You get to say what you want to do. Okay, so in our classrooms, for the most part, we have a direct democracy. Everybody has a vote in what we want to do. Do we want to watch Toy Story 1? Do we want to watch Toy Story 4? Okay, you get to vote. Whoever has the most votes, that's what we end up doing. For Friday Fun, you get to just do what you want to do, right? So it's a little bit different. You get to vote for what you want to do. Sometimes you actually win, and that's what's passed. Okay, like watching a movie. You might not want to watch that movie. You end up watching it because what's better than watching a movie? But your idea might not always win, but you always have a vote in it. So that was what direct democracy was. Everybody had a vote, and you were able to put in your thoughts into what you thought wanted to be done. Okay, again, we use democracy now, but it's a different type of democracy. It's not direct democracy, and again, we'll come back to that. Okay, so now let's move into sports. The Olympics were originated in ancient Greece. So they began in 776 BCE when a group of runners went to a place called Olympia as part of a religious celebration. Over the next 900 years, the number of events grew from a single foot race to include many other sports. So this is what a foot race looked like back then with full armor. Okay, it was one of the Olympic events in which ancient times. Okay? So imagine running like that today with all this armor on. That would be a mess. Okay? But the Olympics do still exist today. So every 4 years, athletes from around the world gather to compete in dozens of sports. Our modern Olympics are modeled after the games of ancient Greece. So they're modeled after it. Again, they're not exactly the same because we have different sports now. We're not sitting there running in that armor. That's not happening for us. Okay? But it's modeled after it. So the first modern Olympics were held in 1896 in Athens. Today's athletes hoped for gold medals, but those first winners simply got crowns made of olive branches. In 2004, the world came to Greece once more for modern Olympics. Some events were even held at the ancient sites. So that's pretty cool. So I know in class we talked about modern Olympics compared to ancient Olympics and how they've changed over time. So again, now they're every 4 years, right? Every 2 years are the Summer Olympics, every 2 years are the Winter Olympics. As some of you may have known, this year was supposed to be a year of Summer Olympics, okay? But because of COVID and everything, clearly the Olympics were not able to be done because you need to be very close to people to participate in the Olympics. So now those 2020 Olympics have been pushed to 2021, okay? And that's when the Summer Olympics will happen. In 2022, the Winter Olympics should be happening also. I don't believe that they're going to change them to be every 2 years just because we had to push one back. But we had to cancel the Olympics this year because you have to stay 6 feet apart from people. And if you look at this picture right here, clearly that's not how a race is done today, but they're pretty close together. Okay? So in a race, everybody's pretty close together. Pools, there's swimming, I think, in the Summer Olympics, gymnastics. Okay, a lot of people close together, and for our health and the athletes' health, not really ours, because I don't know if we're participating in the Olympics, they had to postpone them until next year. So hopefully, fingers crossed, those will happen next year. Okay. So the final contribution that we got from the ancient Greeks is the marathon. Okay, and anybody who had Miss Hoxter, Miss Elliott, you guys know that they run a ton of marathons. I ran a half marathon with them actually today, 1 year ago, 2 years ago, 1 year ago. So a marathon is 26.2-mile long foot race. I ran a half marathon. Half of 26.2 is 13.1 miles. So very long. So it started in wartime when the Greeks were under attack by a huge army from Persia. The Greeks were very much outnumbered, okay, but they still won the Battle of Marathon. So Persia came in, okay, and they had the Battle of Marathon. One soldier ran over 20 miles from the town of Marathon to the city of Athens to bring news of the victory. And so that's kind of where that came from, was they had this Battle of Marathon. This soldier ran over 20 miles from the town of Marathon to the city of Athens and brought the news. So that's what it might have looked like back in the day. Okay, today, that is what a marathon looks like. Okay, that's the Buffalo Marathon, it says. There are marathons all over the world, different marathons. You might know of New York Marathon, Chicago, all these big cities and small cities have marathons also. Okay, again, marathons are not happening currently, because if you look at this picture right here, look at how close together all those people are. So marathons have also been postponed currently, but those came from ancient Greece. So we have a lot of different things that came from ancient Greece that we still use today. Architecture, arts, government, and sports. Okay? All different contributions that came from ancient Greece. So this week for your choice board, I know I just loaded you up with information, okay? But you're gonna have 3 choices that you can do. Do 1, do 2, do all 3, okay? So your first choice is going to be to tell your own story by designing your own pottery. So again, I said in class, you had to use that urn to tell us what you learned about ancient Greece. That's not what you're going to do this time. Now you're going to tell your own story. Okay? It can be a made-up story. It can be a true story. Maybe it can be how you've been spending your time in quarantine, whatever you want it to do, but it is only with pictures. If you remember those examples that I showed you, there were no words on them. Okay? So that assignment is going to be on Wixie. So you can use the paintbrush tool, you can use the stickers, you can add pictures. I'll show you that in a minute. Okay? Or you can print it out if you have a printer, or you can draw your own and just design it how you want to tell a story. The next choice is you are going to read an article. Okay? It is about an 11-year-old girl, so not that much older than you guys, who qualified for ping pong. They'll call it table tennis in the article, ping pong, if you know what that is. And she was going to participate in the Olympics this summer, 11 years old. Okay, so you're going to read that article to find out more about that. And then you're going to write about an Olympic event that you would want to participate in and why. Okay? What do you think it would feel like to win that event if you won? What would it feel like to just participate in the Olympics, traveling to wherever the Olympics are? Okay, so one event that you would want to participate in, really any sport that you can think of, is an Olympic event. Okay, so think about what you would want to do, why you would want to participate in it, what it would feel like to participate, what it would feel like to win. And then the last choice that you have is to read a book on Mayan about ancient Greece, and then write down at least 3 new facts that you learned. So right now I'm going to quickly show you, okay, okay, this is what the Greek pottery will look like. So again, you can use images from up here. You can use the paintbrush, paint thingy, whatever this is called, okay, to design your own ancient Greek pottery. Again, you can print this out if you do not want to do it on Wixie. Your next option is to read this article. She's 11, okay? And then write what event you might want to participate in the Olympics and why. And then finally, you're going to go to Clever, go to Mayan, okay? Come up here to library and search, and then type in ancient Greece and choose one of these books to read and write down some new facts as you go. Okay. So daily life, gods and goddesses. I know we didn't talk too much about gods and goddesses. Okay. So if you want to know more about those, ancient Greece, ancient Greece, ancient Greece, daily life in ancient Greece, the Olympics. So choose one of those and decide which one you would like to read, and then write down some facts that you learn. So I hope that you have fun with whatever choice that you decide. Send your teacher pictures, submit it on Wixie. We want to see what you are doing. Okay, I know we say it every week. We want to see what you're doing. We're bored at home. Entertain us. Okay. So have a great day, and I will actually see you tomorrow for your science lesson. Okay. Bye, guys.